There is a moment in every life when you decide to rise, to stand taller than your fear, to speak louder than your doubt, to chase the vision that sets your soul on fire. This is that moment. And here, we walk it together with stories that awaken, voices that inspire, and truths that set you free. This is Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where hope has a voice, and that voice is yours. And welcome to the show, everybody. Set you free. Set you free. Did I say, Brichelle, set you free?
I think so. Do you want to say it again? Why are you saying that, may I ask?
Because we have Tyler Chisholm with us, and he is, let me see. He is an author. He is a podcaster. He's got 2, soon to be 3 podcasts. And the new one that's coming out is called Curious as Hell, because he is curious about everything. So I'm excited about having him on the show. Brichelle, would you like to introduce him, because you do such a good job?
Yeah, I would love to. Well, welcome, Tyler. If you want to go to his website and follow along with us, it's his name, tylerchisholm.com. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I may mess that up.
Very close, very close. You're right there. You're right there.
Well, we'll get it right throughout the entirety of the show. But welcome, Tyler. How are you? I loved that we talked about the curiosity of the cat and longevity, which is not what we've heard of. So we'll talk about that as well.
Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Of course.
Wow, you're an awesome dude. Anybody ever tell you that before?
Not today. So Kevin, we're in good shape. We're in good shape. You're starting on the right foot, my friend. And thank goodness it's towards the end of the day. So if I didn't squeeze one in, I'd be in trouble.
There you
Boy,
go.
no kidding. We've been busy today, haven't we, Brichelle?
We really have. But what we talk about literally is the same thing. When you feel like you're in purpose and in alignment with what you're doing, and there's meaning to it for a deeper reason that's bigger than yourself, it makes you realize that there's many things in this life that you want to do. And Tyler, you know all about that. I mean, you have 3 podcasts now. So where did that all start?
It started on a dare. I
just had that happen our last show. So
It totally did. I said to a good friend of mine, I said, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to start a podcast. He literally showed up the next day and goes, he used to be a recording artist. So he's like, here's the gear. Here's the mic. Here's the M box. And he goes, by the way, I'll edit them for you. So he goes, let me know when you've got your first one done. And that's how it started back in 2018. And I did my first 1, I did my first 2, then I did 3. And I said, wait a second. I like this. As my wife likes to affectionately say, I do love the sound of my own voice. So podcasting was perfect for me. But I actually ended up having conversations. I played it safe. I interviewed first with 3 people that I knew. And I walked away going, wait a second. I actually didn't really know them. I didn't know their life stories. I didn't know the twists and turns. I didn't know the pitfalls they made it through to be successful. Wait a second. Maybe there's something to this format. And I fell in love. And the rest is pseudo history and then COVID happened and I started another show right before and then it took off. I'm located here in Western Canada. So I went from human interest to economic transformation across Western Canada. And I did 534 episodes of that show since 2020.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
There are not a lot, and I know you've probably done some research. There are not a lot of people that have stuck with it to do over 500 shows. That means to me that you're passionate about what you do.
Yep.
Kevin, it's a privilege. I am privileged to have these conversations. I've never left a podcast and went, oh, geez, it's almost like going to the gym. I don't know if I have time, but then you do, and you're like, oh, that was the best. I'm so glad I did it. I met so many people and I didn't just meet them. I got to meet them and then have meaningful conversations about them. It was a privilege. And, we're going to get into this, but what I learned about myself and what I learned about my own style of showing up, how that has positively influenced my world as a leader and how Curious as Hell came to be, I give podcasting all the credit, 100%.
Well, the interesting thing is Brichelle's been with me for 2 years now. I've been doing this for a very long time, but she's been with me for 2 years. And it's kind of like College 101 because she gets to talk to all kinds of different people with different perspectives and different thoughts. And it has a tendency to expand you when you do that and you're meeting all of these people doing all of these really interesting things.
It's very cool. It is a fabulous, like the lost art of a good old fashioned conversation. And I think podcast has really brought that back.
Yeah.
It has. And by the way, just so you know, we talked to a gentleman on our last show who is committed to the fact that podcasting is just in its infancy.
Hmm.
And it's going to be, over time, a much, much bigger deal. And so there is no wrong time to get into it.
That's
But if you do it and you have a passion and a purpose behind it, any time is good to get into it. As a matter of fact, if you look over your left shoulder there, where she's going to start her own in March. Aren't you, Brishelle?
Well, congrats.
That is what I said. I promise everyone, if you don't hear it March 1st, don't email me. Don't come at me. Wait, give me at least until the last day of the month. No, I'm kidding. But exactly what you said, Tyler. I was listening to him talk, and I'm like, there's reasons, more reasons why to do it than why not to do it. And as we talked about, it's these conversations bring learning ends up transferring into passion and purpose and all those kind of things. You kind of can't go back from that. It keeps you curious. Therefore, the more you're curious, the more you're learning, the more you're growing, the more you're expanding. And it's like falling down a happy rabbit hole. I don't know if anyone's ever said that. That's a thing now. But there's such powerful purpose in just conversating. Like, how lucky are we to wake up and just talk?
It's a privilege.
Each other.
It's absolutely a privilege.
And Tyler, I got to ask you, have you ever said to your better half, "Hey, honey, we could do a podcast together"? Kevin,
no, I have not done that. I've been married for 20 plus years and I know better. My wife and I are the best team, and she loves that I do podcasting. And we're gonna leave it at that.
She said, "Let that be yours."
100%. We don't have to share everything. Yes, agreed.
Well, and my former wife, she didn't like it at all. But this is my passion. This is what I do, and I just love to talk to people like you. When you were talking about doing your podcast and beginning this whole journey, did you have a moment in time when you said to yourself, like I did, "Why am I here? What am I here to do? What am I here to contribute?" Did that play into your thought process at all?
Kevin, I want to talk about when I started my second podcast, because this is a bit of a story. And a good friend of mine, someone who was an acquaintance at that time and became a good friend of mine, we met for coffee, and he said, "Tyler, this city, being Calgary specifically, we were 5 years into a pretty aggressive economic downturn. He said, Tyler, we need a podcast that really talks about the people that are solving problems on one side of the street, but the people on the other side of the street aren't hearing about it. And I'm using the word, we need to start a podcast." I said, "Kevin," his name was Kevin as well. Funny enough, Kevin Crow. I'm a big fan, a very, very good friend of mine. He said, "Yeah, no, Tyler, no, you're going to do it. You're going to host this podcast." And I was like, "Well, wait a second. What do you mean? What's this we business over here?" And he's like, "Well, no, you're going to interview CEOs from like some of the super majors. You're going to interview people in biotech. You're going to interview venture capitalists. You're going to interview startup founders." And Kevin, I had some imposter syndrome. I was like, and here's the thing, we're chatting and we go to leave and he takes my hand. He's like, "Okay, we're going to do the podcast, right?" And I had a moment of honesty and I said, "I don't know if I'm the right guy." And he wouldn't let go of my hand. It was the obnoxiously long handshake. And he's got me, and to me now it was 5 minutes, but it was probably 12 seconds. But anyways, and he says, "Tyler," he goes, and he was, Kevin did extreme ultra marathons, like 250-kilometer races. And he looks at me and he says, "Tyler, do you think when I show up at that starting line, I look over and there's professional athletes and there's sponsored people and there's Kevin from Calgary?" He goes, "You don't think I got a little imposter syndrome?" But he goes, "When that gun goes off, I do it anyways." And I looked at him, I was like, "You son of a," and I was like, "Okay, let's do it." And he literally strong-armed me into it. And it was the best decision I ever made. I said yes. He started feeding me guests. And the day before I did my first guest, I was like, "What am I going to do here?" And I'd done some podcasts, but not with this caliber, or the people that I elevated to this caliber. I was pretty intimidated. And I said, "Wait, Tyler, what are you doing here? Why? They're the hero. It's not about you." So first of all, why, like, you're just going to have a conversation about something they've clearly crushed in their life. Start making it about them. And that's before I really embraced the concept of curiosity. But I got out of my own way by remembering that it wasn't about me. It was about the guest. And I took off, and, COVID landed, and I did 100 podcasts in the first 10 months. and it literally changed the trajectory of my life. And I didn't almost say no. I did say no, but I got strong-armed into it by a good friend of mine, and I will be forever grateful.
Well, I'm glad it worked out for you, because that wouldn't be a friend of yours if it didn't work out for you.
Yeah, he's like actually one of my closest friends right now. So it 100% worked out. I think leadership comes in all shapes and sizes. And sometimes you got to rely on those people around you to see the version of yourself that you haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
And in my story is kind of similar, where I had a friend come up to me one day and he said, we should do a television show to talk about everything that we're learning. And we couldn't do TV, but we could do radio. So that's where it all started. And
nice, similar story.
He ended up going away, and I haven't seen him in 20 years because it wasn't his thing, but he saw that it was my thing, and it was something that I could do and really was passionate about. So it's not for everybody, but it can be if they choose it to be.
Well, good thing we all don't love the same things, Kevin. It'd be a crowded space if we did.
And that's the truth. Yeah. So, but Rochelle, what do you think? Are you excited about embarking upon your own version of your own podcast?
I just agreed to this 30 minutes ago. I feel like we're still interlocked in that handshake for the last 30 minutes. But the more I think about it, the more excited really I am. And the more maybe I'm not giving myself credit for being able to do, having the imposter, like, am I good enough for this? Is this going to work? Like, is there a point? But I already have such a strong background in understanding the power in just helping one person, and being able to share somebody's story alone does that. And if I stick with it and the name is useful and available, it'll probably be called The Impossible, because really, Tyler, you've got to tell me, like, you had that thought go through your head, right? Like, well, is this even possible? Right? And so to talk about, like, you could be on my show. There we go.
I accept, Rochelle. I accept.
Yes. Talk about what is possible. And you mentioned something that I just want to touch on, which is support and community. If somebody were to ask you, how important is it for me to go into something that I'm doing and I feel purpose and passion in, to have background? Because a lot of us are like, I can do it all by myself. So what would you say?
In terms of having support versus the idea of like going it alone?
Yeah.
Oh, I wouldn't have got past episode 3 if it wasn't for my team. I want to be very clear. Editing, the afters, like all of the things that it takes to make a podcast. And I think, Kevin, you mentioned earlier, a lot of people don't stick with it, because I think a lot of people get into it not realizing like what's actually involved. My team, my social media manager has been with me for almost 5 years now. So she's been actively part of this journey. There's a group of us. I'm very fortunate. I own a marketing agency. So I was always able to have the right people touch it at the right time. If it wasn't for that, I got to do the glamorous part. I got to be on there with the guests and connect. And I would argue, for me, the easiest part and the fun part, but I created, and I was very fortunate to have a support network around me that really allowed me to get it going. So many of these things have now become easier with technology and automations and AI. In 2018, in the good old days, it was pretty manual. Like, if you wanted to pull out excerpts from your transcript, someone had to listen to the whole podcast. Now AI, Cast Magic, can do that for you. But it has been more fun. I'm a co-creator at heart. I know that the best things in my life always happen when I co-create. I co-create in a conversation. But if I think about my team, it was a make or break for me. I wouldn't have got past episode 5 if I didn't have people around me to go on the journey and help me along the way.
Yeah, good.
I have this, sinking feeling now, because are you familiar with the New York Yankees baseball team?
Yes, as a concept, yes, I'm very familiar with them. I am.
Well, years ago in the 30s, there was a first baseman, and the first baseman I forget his name, obviously, because he doesn't matter, but he got hurt, and a new kid came up, and his name was Lou Gehrig, who ended up being in first base for and he had the Iron Man, and he did more games in a row. I kind of feel like that's, like me and Rochelle. Nobody's going to remember who the hell I am, but it's going to all be about Rochelle.
You're hilarious. I am not going to say what's on my mind. And I think that's the point too, Tyler, is we don't really know the impact that we're having or that we're making. We're just being ourselves. But how impactful that can be to allow yourself to truly just be who you are. But then have an effect where you go when you leave your house, when you have a conversation, when you wake up and go to sleep. To have that foundation of purpose within rather than trying to prove it on the outside. So I want to talk about what it was like for you to find that within before it started to blossom truly and what that process was like. And also about your book. So let's take this quick break and talk about that as well.
Well, that was a perfect example. That was a great tie-in, Rochelle. Very excellent setup as a podcast. Because the book for me was the coming together of that journey.
Oh.
I didn't start as the curiosity guy. I didn't start as like, oh, my brand is curiosity. But I had people from the outside say, oh, wow, I love your show. You're so curious. It blows me away. And I'm like, okay. You know, when you're just being you and then other people start to label it and you're like, I wouldn't have called it that, but I guess so. And then I started to, what the real turning point for me was, I said, wait a second. The me that shows up on the podcast is curious. It's never about me. It's always about the other person. I always create space. I'm like, I wonder if I'm doing that with my leadership skills. And I wasn't. I got a 360 leadership review and my team was like, Tyler, you fill up the room. You ask questions you already know the answer to. You don't give us time. You don't give us space. I'm like, that would make for a terrible podcast host. And I said, wait a second. Okay, to hold the phone here. What if podcast Curiosity Tyler showed up in the office? And around 2021, I started to really be deliberate about it and started to go, I'm choosing curiosity, which now that I started to define it, it means not having all the answers. It means creating space for the other person. Being a good podcast host is being those things. And I started to immediately see a positive impact in my workplace and hear it same way. I'd start to hear it back to me. And then my social media manager, bless her heart, she goes, Tyler, you need to write a book. I'm like, okay, sure. And she goes, you know what it's going to be about? Going to be about curiosity. And I was like, okay, I like it. And then she challenged me to write 1 article a month. So I did that for a year. And it forced me to really pull my thoughts together while also continuing to practice on the show and at the office. And I was like, okay. So a year ago, right now, January 15th, I was only 2 weeks in. So I wrote the book last year. It took me a year to prep and it took me about 3 months to actually write the book with a really good editor, back to the teamwork. But that was a full arc of not being a podcast host to not really even appreciating curiosity as a superpower to then being deliberate about it, to writing a book about it. So it really started probably in 2018.
Well, let's take this break and dive on that. Kevin's probably got so many questions.
Right, and the one question I'm going to ask you is, I'll bet you that, because I got told this before, when I was at the hostess of a dinner party that I was at, and she goes, you know, you're great to have around because you always ask people questions. And I'll bet you that preceded I bet you that's part of your DNA. We'll talk about that when we come back.
There is a moment most leaders never talk about. The strategy is sound, the team is capable, and yet something feels off. That moment is not failure. It's a signal that structure and humanity have drifted apart. Calm is often misunderstood. It is not passive. It is not disengaged. It is not soft. Calm is what allows us to see clearly when others react. This is the work I've spent decades doing, helping leaders navigate hard conversations with intention and guiding organizations back into alignment. If this resonates, you're not alone, and I'd love to connect.
And welcome back to Positive Talk. My name is Kevin, and Rochelle's right there, and Tyler Chisholm. Is it Chisholm or Chisholm or Chisholm?
Just Chisholm.
Chisholm.
Imagine the H wasn't there. It throws everybody off.
Prism.
But it reminds me of the John Wayne movie.
It does. Yes, it does.
There you go.
The Chisholm Trail, and I'm old, so I can reference that. So,
well, I must be old as well, Kevin, because I know exactly what you're talking about.
But I'm willing to bet that throughout your entire life that you have been a curious individual and have asked people questions, because that's how we get to know who they are at a fundamental level, not spewing out our own stuff. We already know what our own stuff is, but I'm always curious about what somebody else is and what makes them think and what makes them tick and all that kind of stuff. Did you start out that way?
I absolutely did. And I think I did it more from a place of lifting myself up, like pure curiosity is I want to know more so I can know more. When I started to shift into being deliberate, even with the podcast, it was like, this wasn't even just for me. It was to elevate and help articulate and tell the story of the other person. So it went from more of a self curiosity and lots of internal reflection to more relational to a little bit more strategic. How can I lean in? How can I unpack? How can I give this person a question that makes them go? And I love when someone goes, huh, it's a great question. I've never thought about that way before. That's when I knew I was on the right thread to use curiosity a little bit more deliberately, not just because, oh, I want to know more. If I'm really telling a story and elevating that guest and making them the hero, lots of times I found that people hadn't necessarily put a lot of thought into their own journeys or how they overcame certain things. When I knew the podcast was going well, they'd be like, it would almost, the question would take them back and go, oh, wait a wow. Okay. And then we'd start to elevate, and then we'd really start to spice up and grow the conversation. That's where it went from like, oh, I want to know because I feel like elevated by it, to how can I use it to actually help that person tell their story more effectively. And that's where it started to bridge the gap for me from more self to really being about that other person.
Michelle's been doing this for 2 years, and I got to tell you, I can't tell you how many times we've had people say, that's a very, very good question. Michelle, do you have one of those up your sleeve?
Yes, well, it's actually kind of a flip of your question, because you can do all this stuff on the outside, as I mentioned, but was there a point in time when you started to be more curious about yourself at the same time? It kind of forced you to be that way naturally, or what happened?
Michelle, what an excellent question.
Thanks.
Through working through the book and through working through the journey, I built kind of like what I believe very simply is a 3-stage process, but it starts with the whole book could have been about self-curiosity.
Right.
When I show up, when do I get triggered? When am I at my best? When am I reacting? When am I like, when you're in the groove, like what version of that? How did I get there? Or like, oh, I get triggered and I'm like, oh, I get defensive, or I feel like I need to fill the space. Self-curiosity, especially for leaders. Well, it's for all humans, but if you're a leader, if you don't get really aware of where you're coming from and maybe why you're coming from that place, oftentimes you end up leaving a room in chaos and you don't even have any idea. Start with self-curiosity before you even move forward. I think that's part of the privilege of being human and being on the journey, is taking the time to pay attention to what's going on with you. You could call it self-awareness. You can call it, a good conversation with a therapist. It really starts with, I'm curious enough to know what makes me tick, to work at it and pay attention to it, because only then can I begin to shift it or change it in a way that might create some better outcomes for me, especially in a workplace environment.
Yeah. Yeah. And it almost forces you to have like some sort of, we've been talking about values a lot. We talk about boundaries, we talk about respect, we talk about communication, all these things, but what do you value inside of yourself? Do you value something that money can buy? Do you value the things that you take with you when you move on from this life? And I think, did you ever have that question like bounce in your head and it like flipped everything upside down? Because it did for me, for sure.
100%. I think I've read my first book on Buddhism when I was in my early 20s and going, oh, what's this all about? And like, I really went on that self journey. So I think it very much was got certified in neurolinguistic programming. I did Myers-Briggs. Like I was almost obsessed with some of those little personal insights of like what made me tick. And being performance oriented of like, oh, I want to be better. I would always find these things. I'm like, it's just getting in my way, but I don't know what's driving it. So there was a lot of deep self-assessment that came through. And it's funny, even writing the book, I joke with people, I said, if you want an experience that forces you to think about your thoughts objectively and subjectively, write a book about them. I act a certain way. Where did that come from? Where did I pick that up? And the book was, I think I'd reached a certain point, but the book was a lot of you, the mirror and the keyboard going, so self, how did you get to this? Where did that come from? Did you make that shit up?
Yep, it is.
And it's amazing. And it can be the simplest things. As an example, why do you never put the vacuum cleaner away? Which is one of my deals that I've had a problem with forever. And it took me 20 years to figure out the story behind why I don't put the vacuum cleaner away. And I've told it on the show before, so I won't repeat it here. But it's those little things that you go, it's kind of like a point to ponder. Why do I do that? Whenever this happens, why do I get triggered that way? And stuff. And then you start thinking about it, and then at least in my case, the thought comes as to why that is. Is that kind of the process that you've used to, like, you have an idea and a thought, why do I do it that way? And then you look at what triggers you and what you do in regards to that. Does that make sense at all?
I actually taken it to almost like an analog version. So I love using pencils. I'm a pencil guy. So I literally will take a paper and I'll put a line down the middle. And on the left side, I'll put whatever that behavior is that I would like to see less of in my life. I'd like to see myself leaving the vacuum cleaner out more or out less. And then on the other side, it'd be like cleaning up after myself. I don't know. I do this in business environments all the time. And then I just kind of try to take notes. And, I spend a lot of my time on Zoom. So it's a really perfect moment right after you get off to go, did like interrupt Tyler, not give any space Tyler show up a lot? And what did that look like? It usually takes a few days and you start to see a pattern almost immediately. And then you're like, okay, if this is the pattern, where did that come from? Oh, maybe it's my fear of feeling small, or maybe it's my need to seem like I have all the answers. Where did that come from? Oh, my grandmother when I was 12. Like I was not going too far down the rabbit hole, but I use a very analog approach and I'll just take notes. And it's amazing with a little bit of just deliberate, just a touch, just a dash of deliberate intention. You can get a lot that, or recruit a trusted friend. They'll also, because no one else sees your behaviors faster than you, than someone you're close to that knows you and loves you.
Yeah, that is very true. Tyler, I have to ask you too.
Yep.
If I was a child and you would have told me that curiosity was a good thing, right? Because kids were like, don't be too curious. It's dangerous, or it's this, or it's that. And it teaches you a sense of fear. But if as an adult, you rewire your curiosity to engage again, doesn't it naturally kind of kick fear out where it could have had its place? And you don't have to be so intentional about paying attention to it in the first place. Does that make sense?
It does. And, let's not debate, like some fears are real. And the majority of them are made up. I've seen a coach of mine do a great exercise, facts versus fictions. And you talk about your fears and you go, how many of those are facts and how many of those did you just like are fictions or made up? And you're like, I'm going to get curious. And if I do have a fear of like, fear of, fear of getting onto a podcast, I'm kind of fearful to do that. It's probably a fiction, because what's the worst thing can happen? Is anyone going to die? No. Is this going to be some kind of like, personality suicide? Man, probably not. And you really start to assess it. And that curiosity of understanding where it comes from, because, am I fearful to close my eyes and walk out in traffic? Justifiably so. But a lot of times I think we tell stories about things that then get to be the tiger gets bigger than it is. And when you look in the mirror, you're like, oh, it was just a kitten. And all I was seeing was the reflection. And if you're curious about that, I think a lot of fears can be unpacked really, really quickly, actually. And it's fun because you can be playful with it.
And you just said justification. Kevin, why do we make ourselves struggle with that?
Because we tell ourselves stories that just are not true. And we've made them up because they serve our needs at the moment, either of insecurity or misunderstanding or fear. But then they getting somewhere in the process, Tyler, they get ingrained in what we believe. And when we unpack those stories and then we discover that what I have believed this whole time isn't even true, real change can then begin. But you have to get to that point, don't you?
100%. I always joke, when's the last time you asked an 8-year-old for advice? Probably earlier today. So I'm like, how did 8-year-old me jump into this meeting? I also learned something when I was doing some coaching training years ago. And they said, no matter how weird, dysfunctional, crazy, or unhealthy a behavior looks, and Kevin, you captured it perfectly, there was a benefit somewhere along the way to that behavior. And you maybe just took it too seriously and forgot to turn down the volume. And now it's showing up in inappropriate ways at disproportionate times, but somewhere there was a positive outcome. And I think sometimes that can create a little bit of permissibility, it can give you a little bit of grace. And I think sometimes in our society, we don't do that a lot. Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. Tyler, doesn't help when you give yourself grace to work through those 100%. Things, because if you're sheltering yourself and crowding yourself because of those things that you see are brought to the surface, then you're telling yourself you're not willing to do it. And if you're not willing to do anything about what you now have awareness of, change won't happen, right?
100%. Being human is messy.
Yes.
Sometimes we have to be okay with that.
And a lot of times we don't believe that we deserve it.
Oh, that's a powerful one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we've been told our whole lives, no, you ain't that great, you ain't that good, or whatever it is, or we told ourselves that, and so we don't believe. We don't believe that that we deserve it, that we are inherently good enough to have it. And that all of that is a story that you made up, and it really is irritating because so many people tell themselves that story, and it's just a fallacy. It's a lie. And it doesn't serve them, and it doesn't serve their family or friends either.
And that's where the self-curiosity lands, and getting a little bit more curious about those stories, where they came from. How is this story serving me, and having that little fireside chat with yourself, which is easy to say on this episode and just chatting about it. But self-curiosity, I think, is the foundation of all.
I agree.
And there are all kinds of ways that you can do it. You can look at it, you can do it. And in our last break, we're going to play something that we call the mirror. And you can look in the mirror and you can make a change about who you see in the mirror. Because a lot of us look in the mirror and we go, oh, that sucks. I'm not going to look in the mirror anymore and stuff. But we are who we are. And by the way, Tyler Chisholm is with us. And Brashelle, how do we get a hold of Tyler? By the way, I wanted to ask you, you're a podcaster. You got 3 podcasts going up and you've taken coach training. Are you, if somebody calls you and says, Tyler, I need you to coach me, would you coach them?
Yes, I would, Kevin. I'm about to move into that space. Absolutely. I just had a meeting about it with a trusted team member this morning. So I used to be in the health and fitness industry. I actually lived down in LA for a while. And I used to be a personal trainer way back in the early days. And I loved helping people. And I took a break from that. And I've been running a marketing company for the last 15 years. And it's been a fantastic role where I was able to be a coach in a different context. And through the book and through some of this work I've done, I've had a bunch of people reach out to me. So as early as this morning, I've made the decision to move back into that realm. So this was not a plant, Kevin. That was a very strategically asked question. Absolutely. I'm quite excited about it. And to be able to share this and take what I've learned through my own, I'll be honest, hard-earned experiences and share it with other leaders, especially leaders in organizations where there's an expectation sometimes that you do have all the answers. There's maybe not that safe environment, depending on the size of your company, with the team members where you can really show up with that raw version of yourself, where you can work on it. I really am excited about leaning into that space and being that solution for people.
Awesome.
My intuition told me to say that to you because of the man that you are and how helpful you can be to humanity, not just in a podcast, but in a one-on-one situation.
Very nice.
And we need to take a quick break for our halftime, and we'll be right back. More with Tyler Chisholm and Brashelle. His website, please.
Yes, tylerchisholm.com. You can find everything there. Curious as Hell, the podcast, the other ones, the book, the blog, the speaking, and all about Tyler. And now opening chances to be a coach with him. So stay in touch, everybody. I have a question that's a little bit out of the blue when we come back from our halftime break.
Thank you.
And I just love to say, curious as hell. And we'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
Are you looking for your daily dose of inspiration? Stay connected to all your favorite shows, music, and news with the Brushwood Media Network app. From Positive Talk Radio to Greatest Vibes Unplugged and so many more uplifting voices around the world, everything you need is right in one place. It's easy to use, too. Always available and designed to keep you inspired 24 hours a day. Go to brushwoodmedianetwork.com and download the app, and you will always have Brushwood Media available on your smartphone. Download it now and make inspiration and music and conversation part of your everyday. And welcome back to Positive Talk. My name is Kevin McDonald. Brashelle is right there. And I tell you, Tyler, I'm so lucky that Brashelle allows me to co-host on her show and stuff. It really is.
Soon. Me and Tyler both agreed to something new this morning, and we're going to see where the wind takes us. Right, Tyler?
What an amazing day. Absolutely.
Yes. It's a powerful Thursday. Feels like Friday.
So I got to ask you, this morning when you were talking with your team member and the subject of coaching came up, Did you bring it up or did they bring it up?
I brought it up with them. I had some questions. I said, I've been thinking a few weeks. I think it's time to make a move into this space. They're like, finally, thank you. I already have a plan. This is what we can do. We got to change the website. It was a fantastic conversation. And that was one of those moments when you finally get there and they were waiting for you to get there.
They were being quiet about it, but they were
which is not their nature. So I'm surprised, but they maybe drop some hints, Kevin. They maybe drop some hints.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that you will be phenomenal at doing that, given all of your life experience and the fact that you're curious. Talk about that a little bit, about Curious as Hell, the show that you have coming up, and everything else that you're doing, which is pivoting from your ultimate curiosity of life.
It has been the catalyst for so many things. So we're about 3 episodes recorded. We're trying a new format. So more of like a Netflix style series where it's 7 episodes. It's called Curious as Hell in reflection of the book, but the season 1 is the risk of certainty. And I'm talking to leaders from startups, from a sports franchise to an indigenous led business that just exited in the tech space to a CEO from one of the largest companies in Canada, talking about how they have created environments that allow curiosity to thrive, how they themselves have had challenges, how they showed up as leaders when they were expected to have all the answers, when maybe the world around them wasn't as crystal clear as everyone wanted it to be, from investors to teammates to coworkers, and really how they've wrestled with thriving and creating not only for themselves, but cultures where curiosity actually elevated their organizations. So it's long form. They're 1-hour episodes. They're very in-depth, intimate video style conversations where I'm taking the fodder for the book, but taking it out on the road and talking to leaders who have lived it, practiced it, struggled with it, and, ultimately conquered it.
When does the first episode, as they say in the lingo, when does the first episode drop?
I'm going to say the last week of February right now. So we're the last week of January. We've got a few episodes already in the can, as they also say in the biz. So we've got 3 episodes in the can. We've got 2 more coming down. So we're going to be rolling them out the end of February, and we're going to pop them out every 2 weeks, rolling right into the spring and early summer.
Isn't that exciting, Rochelle?
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think, my brain is going 100 miles an hour, and you've got me curious. And I think we all should be more like that. Like when we were kids, they took away from us. I'm thinking I could sit in my living room and set up a camera and talk to people that I have in my daily life, maybe even in my family. My mom, maybe there's stories that she needs to share that could help impact other people, and what that's like to get out too, right? Because do you do a show with somebody or you yourself and you're like, that feels so good to release?
Every time, every single time. I always walk away with, I actually got a good friend of mine was a retired TV anchor, 15 years on television, a professional interviewer. Let's say she's at another level. So I had her interview me for the first episode of my new show about why. And it was amazing, the experience. And I shared a couple of stories that were from the archives of maybe when curiosity wasn't thriving and things went horribly wrong. And it was just that sense of presence, this sense of vulnerability and the sense of being authentic. How often do we not get that opportunity in our lives? Because things are moving fast. Not everyone gets to have amazing conversations like we're having right now every day. I'd say a lot of people don't. It's such a gift. I think, the gift is the 2 people that were there. The bigger gift is who that can impact. I think you've said that often, Rochelle. You never know how your story might make someone go, never thought of my own life that way. That's elevating. And I love it. I think it's, you never know what you're going to get when you put something out of the world, but when you do it with good intentions, I've yet to find it not work out.
Yeah. Well, and I have to ask you, did curiosity ever kill one of your lives?
One of my lives? Ooh, it killed. It
You got 9. You got to use them, right?
Yeah, I do. Well, you know what? I would say not being curious probably took a few personalities off the table. The I've got it all figured out, I know everything guy. That guy didn't make it. He did not make it.
Me too.
He tripped and fell down a flight of stairs a couple times for sure. So I think curiosity for the life story. They hit you with the paddles. That's what's curiosity for me.
And Tyler, I just thought of this, and I want your opinion on this. What do you think of the saying, "the curse of expectations"?
Oh my goodness, it robs you of the freedom. If you ever been in flow? You ever been in? I'm going to use sports, which is terrible to use sports analogies or anything. Actually, for the first time in my life, I got into flow in front of a keyboard while writing the book. There's a huge expectation when you're writing a book, but that day it was just right. There was no number of words. There was no number of pages. There was no number of chapters. I looked up and it was 6 o'clock and I had no idea what happened. I sat down at like 8 in the morning, and next thing I knew, the day was done. I actually was able to get into flow because yes, I had a deadline and I had all the things, but I just decided to write, and it's like that free flowing state. I think that's available to us so often in life. If we let go of maybe, and I don't think just expectations, but perfect expectations and the exact outcome and the measured this and the perfectly proportioned that, I think a lot of times that robs the joy of like, oh shit, I didn't think that was going to happen. That's pretty cool. And I think it's a real tug of war right there.
Yeah.
Rochelle, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just thinking, because we're talking about expectations and how fast things move in our life. How do you have tips and ways that you keep yourself coming back to your path and your foundation, or whatever it may be, while everything is moving so fast? Like, how do you wake up in the morning? Is there certain things that you do and tell yourself in a mojo you put yourself in so that you kind of can feel flow in life?
Oh, that's a great question. I do my little daily meditations. I listen to audio tracks. I listen to binaural beats every day because I find it puts me in the right place. But once the day gets up and rolling, the day's up and rolling. And I'm the
Yes.
CEO of a successful, very busy marketing company. So if I let the alligators in, they will eat up my whole entire day, Rochelle. So I do the react versus reflect versus react. When I catch myself reacting, not reflecting, and I don't mean hours of reflection, I mean sometimes moments, sometimes seconds. So that's my little check and measure. When I'm quick to send it, I wrote it, I got an email and I wrote a response and I'm about to hit send. I'm like, wait a second, Tyler, are you reacting or are you reflecting? And I'd say about 50-50. Maybe I'm being kind, maybe 70-30.
I've heard react and respond, but react and reflect makes you stop.
And I don't mean, because everyone's like, oh, it's time for that. Everyone has a moment. Everyone has a strategic sigh. Oh, my parasympathetic nervous system kind of went up a little bit. Oh shit, maybe I can take out the exclamation marks and the caps that I was using to write this email. And the reflect versus react is something I really try to check myself. And I'll be honest, I don't always hit it. I miss. And that's okay, because back to being practicing and back to being forgiving and giving grace. But I really try to manage those two things. And I think it's accessible to everybody in moments, not hours. Because if I tell someone take hours to think through something, they're going to look at me and say, you don't understand my world. I'm too busy. I don't have time. But we all have time to take a sigh and reflect before we react. Whoa. And it's amazing the curiosity that'll slip in those little 10-second briefers.
If you have time to make a mistake, you have time to make a reflection.
Ooh.
Kevin, we need to put that on something.
Oh, bumper sticker for Michelle. That's a t-shirt. I love that. I love it.
And I had one that Tyler said too, which was, don't let the alligators in.
Yes.
They're at the door.
Let the alligators in. They will eat everything.
I had a friend
So
go ahead, Kevin. Go ahead.
Again, Rochelle?
I said, if you have time to react, you have time to reflect. But really, that's what it comes down to, because we're always going to make mistakes. If you make a mistake, it doesn't also mean that you didn't give yourself time to reflect. Mistakes happen so that we can learn. Right, Tyler?
100%. And I'm going to add one more filter to it. This is one I've picked up the last couple of years. I'm taking this from Jeff Bezos. Love it, or love Amazon or hate Amazon. Is it a type 1 or type 2 situation? Type 1, are you betting the company? Type 2, is it a revolving door? And I think a lot of times we treat everything in our lives like type 1 decisions when they're just simply not. I can make this decision, and an hour from now, if I learn something new, I can back it up. I can change my mind. I can have a fresh perspective. We work on that as a team because the important and urgent really start to bully you in your day. And let's be honest, not everything is important and not everything is urgent, but it masquerades as such. If you can say, you know what, this is a type 2 decision. I can go back to, it's a revolving door. I can change my mind. I can test something, I can learn, and I can back up. I think a lot of us get really caught up in the illusion, and I think it's an illusion, that everything is a make or break, and it's simply not.
Good point.
And we treat it like it's the end of the world.
Oh
my God, it's going to happen. And it's really not, because I drove a bus for a long time, and I had a wise old veteran tell me when I was being called to the chief's office, and because they had a police see me, and he looked at me and he said, you know, they've been through a lot. There's not anything that you've done that hasn't been done before. So just relax and let it be, because it doesn't matter. There's nothing that you've done, any mistake that you've made in your life somebody's made that same mistake, and probably much more spectacularly than you did.
Very wise advice. Yep.
Yeah.
But for you in that moment, it was as real as the story you were telling. Perspective is everything, Kevin. Perspective.
The world is ending. I'm going to die now. And
yet here you are, my friend. You made it through.
I know, and stuff. But Michelle, that used to happen to you all the time, and it doesn't happen anymore. What happened?
I stopped letting the alligators in. There's really no other analogy that's better than that to use right now. And when we come back from this quick break, first I want you to tell us everything, how to reach you, all those things, so people can do that before our last break. But it's Tyler, it's in the sense of, what was I just thinking about? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna stress myself out. Okay, never mind. I'll ask you when we come back.
Amazing.
Okay.
How come she can get away with that? I never. No, I'm kidding. And we need to. And I promised everybody that we would play this earlier in the show. And this is called The Mirror. Here's another point to ponder by Positive Talk Radio. A woman spent years hating the reflection in her mirror. One day, she whispered, "I am enough." Day by day, her reflection became her friend. Self-love begins with the words you tell yourself. Speak gently, because you are listening. This is brought to you by Positive Talk Radio, where stories of hope come alive. And welcome back to Positive Talk. And Tyler, I got to ask you, and Michelle's with us as well, but I got to ask you, how we talk to ourselves in our quiet moments when it's just us, me, myself, and I, and we say some of the cruelest, most inhumane things that we would never say to anybody else. Why do we do that to ourselves?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that. I think I'm going to go with the superficial level that it's a bad habit. We maybe heard it from the outside and we adopted it on the inside and we stuck it with it. I think, bad habits are just good ideas we took too seriously at one point in time and we forgot to give them up. And I think that it can really reinforce a story. Back just Kevin, it's everything you said earlier. We're telling a story. So to make that story true, I need to continue. I need to own it.
Mhm.
I've just got into such a habit of doing it. There are so many deep psychological layers, and some of my friends who are therapists, psychologists, coaches would probably answer this question much better than I. But for me, I want to start with get curious. Is it happening? Why? Like, where is it showing up? Is it beneficial? What are you getting out of that benefit? And what would it be like? I wonder what it would be like if I didn't do that. What would it be like if I could stop doing that? If I would stop doing that? I really believe in possibility language. And I think that's a really fun way to play around with your own inner dialogue as well. Start with you, because you're always listening, exactly like your clip said.
Exactly. Now, but I wanted to say this because you have had quite an education doing a lot of podcasts, and you've talked to a ton of different people. I firmly believe that rather than somebody that's got letters behind their name, somebody that's got experience in the reality of life with working with people and being curious and asking great questions and gathering information is much more valuable than somebody with a PhD behind their name.
Potentially.
If it's a hand, well, okay. What do you mean potentially?
I really hope my surgeon has a PhD and didn't just do a bunch of podcasts about it. Like, I'm going to call a spade on that one, Kevin.
If Kevin walked in the door and I was having brain surgery, I would probably tell him to just pull the cord now. Just get it over with. Don't even try to cut me open. But I want to pull off of what Kevin just said. And it was literally the question.
I got fat little fingers. I can't do anything like that anyway.
Anything is possible, Kevin. But the question that I was going to ask you is literally right in the framework of what Kevin just asked you. And it's, how do you keep yourself separated from tying your identity to the things that you do, not that you are?
Oh, wow. I think that's a struggle. I wouldn't say that I always accomplish it. I think I've gotten better of it with time. And it's something I learned very early in my kind of coaching training was, this isn't about you. This is a thing that happened. And like, I physically am reaching to put something in the middle of the table. I've done this so many times in conversations. I can do it much more effectively when I'm talking to someone else. Rochelle, if you and I were talking about it, you said, oh, this thing happened. And you really identified with it. I'd say, well, first let's talk about the thing separate, because you're still you, no matter whether that thing happened or not. To do that with myself is something I've got a lot better at over time, but I still catch myself. There still is a little bit of that narrative where I can spiral a little bit, the spiral dive where it just starts going down. And I think that, taking my own advice can also be challenging from times. And I think that the 3 out of 10s, the 4 out of 10s, the 5 out of 10s, no problem. I can disassociate from them. But when it's 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10, and you're like, oh, how can I not take that personally? I was all over that. That was all me. That was all that. But I think it's okay to also go through that. Have a little pity party sometimes. That's okay. Invite you and yourself, have a little pity party and go, okay, great. Yeah, that sucked. I really shit the bed. I need to move forward. Okay, great. Now let's move through that. So I think I wrestle and I balance with it. To say I've got it all figured out and perfected would be a lie, Rochelle.
Oh yeah, 100%. So you make sure that you're also celebrating your little wins too, because that keeps you grounded, or rather than getting a big head, but still being proud of yourself for the little things without disacknowledging what you have achieved.
How can you've got to keep the scales balanced. The sword has two sides. The coin has two sides. If like, oh, I'm so amazing, but I'm always getting it right. I'm always getting it wrong. I suck. Neither of those things are true. Neither of them are true. And I think if you take your rational brain, which oftentimes is struggling in a very irrational setting, and go, well, okay, if I nailed that and I didn't nail that, what can I learn from both? And perfect. I try to take less peaks and valleys and a little bit more down the middle of the road, which is really then coming down to emotional regulation, self-awareness around your emotional maturity of like, oh, I can have big feelings. I can also manage them, and I can also be aware. Indulge. I always try to catch myself when I'm being indulgent in those big feelings. It can be a lot of fun, but just remember to step back and kind of be the audience to your own experience every once in a while.
I'm putting that as a bumper sticker too, Kevin.
Well, being your own audience sometimes can be the hardest thing that you do, because now you have to be, honest with yourself about, and well, a lot of times we don't want to be honest with ourselves because for ego or whatever reason, so what's your feeling about that?
About being honest? Well, Kevin, it comes back to the stories. Like when something new shows up that goes against it, there's nothing more challenging for me when I catch myself being inconsistent with myself. I'm this kind of guy. I'm the guy who always follows through, but yet I forgot to follow through, and I had a friend of mine years ago teach me the SDR, the say-do ratio. And he's like, your say-do ratio is 100 or it's 0. So I hold myself to a high standard of having a 10 out of 10 say-do ratio. But guess what? I don't always nail it. And those moments of like, okay, was there a tactic? Did I not set myself? Did I set myself up for failure? I try to be objective about it because that tends to be very binary for me. So that's a world where I have a story that I want to believe is true, that I have a 100% say-do ratio. Sometimes a Tuesday shows up or a Thursday that feels like a Friday, and I slip. I remember the story. I look at the reality. I try to think about it objectively. I have maybe a short pity party, and then I move on. But that moment of being inconsistent with the story that you tell yourself, positive or negative, I think that's one of life's little privileges.
Well, if you're challenging your thoughts, then it challenges you to think about what you're starting to accept now. Because every day we're acquiring new beliefs.
We are.
But do they have to stick, or can they flow and change at the same time? And how are we allowing that in our minds?
Was it seasons like weekend seasons and lifetimes? Sometimes sometimes that belief can just be for a weekend. That's okay. And then you can let it go. Then you can break up.
Wait, isn't part of it, does this new belief serve me? Or does it not serve me? Does it serve the people around me, or does it not? And I wanted to ask you, you've been married for over 20 years. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
And have you, in a quiet moment with your significant other, over the course of your podcasting and your growth and the things that you've done, has she looked at you and said, who are you and what have you done with Tyler? Or does she appreciate your growth and change and moving forward with it, because you are clearly different than you were 20 years ago?
I'm not the only one that thinks this version is a better version than the last version.
I know what that feels like.
So Kevin, it's been positive affirmations. It's been support. It's been like, oh yeah, no, I like my wife is very subtle and I'm the gregarious one in the relationship. My wife says she'll just say these little bombs. I'm just like, oh, wow. Okay. All right. So I believe that she has been a fan and an ultimate supporter of me, but this journey that has made me, I believe, and have been validated from external feedback, a better version than I once was.
And by the way, that also makes you a better leader and a better boss.
Thank you. And that feedback has also come from my team, and that I hold in very high praise, because there was a time I thought leadership was something different. I thought it was command and control. I thought it was the guy on the mountaintop who had all the answers. And I watched too many Rambo movies in the 80s, maybe, I don't know. And I grew up with a myth or an image of leadership that just was no longer serving me. And the podcast journey, a very powerful 360 review, COVID, and a little bit of time to reflect with my sheet of paper and my fixed versus growth mindset on each side. And this journey has evolved. So I'm speaking of this as the last 5 years, not like, oh, all of a sudden I've arrived. This is a really recent transition for me. And I'm still kind of giddy about it. I'm still playing around with it a little bit.
And by the way, you're going to continue to grow and learn and achieve throughout the entire course of your life. So that on your last day, whenever that is, many, many years from now, you can look back and say, I've achieved everything that I came here to do.
100%. I love it.
No regrets. What movie is that from?
No regrets. The tattoo, the chest tattoo. I don't remember the movie, but everyone's seen that meme 100 times, right?
A good mistake.
No regrets.
And Rochelle, you do this part so well, and I would love for you to set us up and take us out, and because Tyler, I would love for him to give us a little nugget or five. That our listeners and viewers can be left with.
Well, we'll see if we can pry one out of him. So, Tyler, well, first of all, Kevin, thank you so much, as always, for making this possible, for allowing Tyler to come on and share his story and talk about himself, because we're all human, we're tied together, and we can relate and learn. So, Tyler, thank you for being here to do exactly that, for being willing to change who you are and evolve and teach people they can do the same. And we cannot wait to continue your growth with you. So, I'd love to give you these last few minutes first to let us know where we can reach you, where we can find you, the books, the podcasts, all that breakdown of that. And then maybe, just like Kevin said, a nugget you'd like to leave us with.
Kevin, are you okay?
I know. I'm like, what? Don't make me jump through my computer. I'll try it.
I'm now dying, so Rochelle's gonna have to take over now. So
anyway, she's handling it like a pro.
Exactly. But Tyler, 5 nuggets.
5 nuggets. Well, I'm going to start with www.tylerchisholm.com. Everything you want to know, anything you want to find, there's tons of content out there. My team and I have put together a website that I really think does add value. Not just like, hey, look at me. No, there's absolutely some amazing takeaways for leaders, for humans that are curious. One of my top nuggets that I might unpack a little bit is something that I want to leave the audience. It's a nugget because I want you to chew on it a little bit. The meaning of your communication is the result that it gets. This is something that I was taught many years ago, and I've pondered it ever since. The level of personal accountability that forces on you, if you choose to believe that story, it takes away the you and brings it all back to the I. And as a leader, as a husband, as a wife, as a friend, as a human going through the world that we live in, that level of ownership, because if the meaning of my communication is the result that it gets, I need to get really curious about that result. I got to get curious about that other person from a relational perspective. I need to get curious about the me that showed up that either created this or that outcome. And I don't care where you fit in the world of how you see yourself as like, oh, I'm not a leader and maybe that's not me. If you take that level of extreme ownership and personal accountability and get really curious about it with positive intent and a positive sense of self-talk, it is absolutely incredible how you can move the needle in your life. Like not tomorrow, not next week, like later today. So I'll say it one more time. The meaning of your communication is the result that it gets. So get curious as hell about that impact on those people in your life that you care about, and then how you show up for it.
Amen.
That's brilliant. Simply brilliant. And Tyler Chisholm has been our guest, and Curious as Hell is his new podcast that is coming up here it'll drop in February, and it'll be in all the major podcast places. But you've also got the two other ones that are already up and operational. And give us the names of those so people can find you there.
Well, the one I just shut the other one down, so it was a big moment. Still makes me sad, but Collisions YYC. If you want to find anything, if you're curious at all about what's happening from an economic perspective across Western Canada, I have the movers, the shakers, the change makers, and we just shut it down about 2 weeks ago. And the content is mostly evergreen. If you want to find out anything about a sector that's happening in Western Canada, by all means. The other one is called They Just Get It. And I've been doing this one was 2018. I talked to rebels. I talked to wild childs. I talked to people that live life by their own devices. And it's much more of a human interest story that really dives into the stories behind the people that we go, oh, wow, that's so cool that's your life. Hey, let me tell you how I actually got here. So we dive deep and take the time to peel back the layers. And if you are curious and you don't want to wait for the podcast, I would absolutely recommend picking up a copy of Curious as Hell. It is definitely focused on a leadership and a management world. But if you're a human being and you're on a curious journey, I guarantee there will be multiple takeaways. It's all I could do to not make it a general interest book. I focused hard on the leadership side, but the reality is curiosity is a human trait that just happens to work really well in leadership.
It does.
If you're curious about everybody on your team, you will learn things that you maybe don't want to know, but you will learn things so that you can tailor your business and how you approach each individual person according to their gifts and their needs. And then you get undying love from those people because not everybody does that. And you're one of those, Tyler.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You said it so beautifully.
Hey, I got lucky, Brachelle, because Tyler, sometimes I'm just curious as hell and stuff. So I want to thank Tyler Chisholm for being here. Get the book, Curious as Hell. Listen to the podcast when it comes out, and go to his website, Brachelle, which is
tylerchisholm.com. He, as he said, has everything there. And people, stay curious. It won't kill you. There's some thought. And we love you. Until next time, thank you for staying tuned. And Tyler, we hope to have you back soon.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
Tyler, you are an amazing man, and you want to watch something happen here real quick? Day after tomorrow is Brachelle's 27th birthday, and tomorrow she gets to interview a gentleman by the name of Mark Victor Hansen, who co-wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul and the 80 million books. And she was sitting in her room when she was 12 and things hadn't gone well. And that book saved her. So are you excited about that tomorrow, Brachelle?
You know, this energy, I'm going to keep flowing with me. And wherever the wind takes me, I'll stay curious as hell. So nobody's going to stop us, and we'll get there eventually.
And Tyler, you don't take a back seat to anybody. I just want you to know that.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you for being part of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where stories inspire and voices remind us of what truly matters. May today's conversation give you hope, courage, and a reason to keep moving forward. And just remember, till next time, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got.